I did want to talk about what's going to be different in the running back space for Georgia in the 2022 season because you're going to have to replace two guys who have been very good for Georgia over a 4-year period, very steady for sure with Zamir White and very explosive with James Cook. Those guys, very quiet guys, are are going to go on to the NFL now. Makes sense what they should do, but the steadiness of Zamir, he has been extremely dependable over 40 games or whatever it's been that he's really been asked to do stuff. But as we've seen over time with running backs at Georgia, it never, I mean, until it's your time, you're really not ever asked to do a ton. So now it is definitely time for Kenny McIntosh and more importantly, Kendall Milton. Now, Kendall Milton is a player that a lot of the league is very wary of. They know that Kendall Milton can be a grind you up kind of player. Kenny McIntosh is going to give you the same type of explosion. Maybe not as quite as explosive as James Cook, but in that universe for sure. And so the transition from James and Zamir to Kenny McIntosh and Kendall Milton is going to occur this offseason. And how will those two um, make it work moving forward? We're going to talk about that a little bit more. Make sure that you're doing like everybody else and getting this book down below DAWGSTRUCTION. You can see there's a new cover, the cover that's actually going to go to print. We didn't have the ability to, well, we didn't know what the championship game would produce until a week ago. So we didn't have our cover until a week ago. Well, until lately. So the design is ready to go. We're laying the pages out, and it's just something you don't want to miss. This is a keepsake. It's going to be something you're going to be flipping through 10 years from now. Make sure that you click the link below and get yours today. How this is going to work is, I'm going to do a first run, and after the first run, it's going to take a little bit of time to get another run going. So make sure you're in on the first run. If you get in now, you will be in on the first run, and it'll be worth your while. Speaking of running, I mean, I've had high hopes for Kendall Milton for some time, and some of it has been that he's been banged up. Some of it that's James and Zamir have been very steady running backs and have done what George has asked them to do. So I think coming into this 22, I thought this past year the two guys to watch out for were Milton and Cook. Well, as it turns out, Cook was definitely deadly at times for Georgia. I think Kendall is the guy to watch out for in 22, just in terms of steadiness. Because if he has one good season, he should. I mean, he's off to the NFL. At least that's what I would do if I were running back. So I think what you've got is some serious potential there with a 1-2 punch with those two guys. Yeah, I mean, you're also going to be adding players. No, you're never at Georgia and you run with three running backs. I mean, it's always like four. So, you're going to have to deal with that as well if you're the opposition. And Georgia continuously recruits at a level that it's hard to deal with if you're the other team. Branson Robinson's going to be a guy that, I mean, he reminds a lot of people of Nick Chubb. Um, we'll see about that. That's a lofty comparison, but I think you add him in the mix as well. I mean, there's nothing at all wrong with what they've got with Edwards, Milton, and just with Edwards, Milton, and McIntosh to begin with. You're along the way pretty well. I mean, that's a good start to any what's the word, to any backfield that's out there. But for Georgia, and you also have the additions of Robinson and Jordan James, who should still come in. We'll see if that happens. I'm not aware that it won't, but he hasn't signed, whereas Robinson has. I just you know, let's just say with the guys that we know for certain are coming in, you've got four legit running backs, and um, the bulk of the carries will probably be between Kenny McIntosh and Kendall Milton. I mean, just me. My suspicion is that Kendall will get the most carries. He will probably be the guy that you don't maybe you don't think about as much. But again, a lot of people in the league have said for a while that's the guy they're concerned about is Milton. But if you don't pay attention to Kenny McIntosh, here he comes exploding down the sideline on you, or even in the middle. I mean, Kenny McIntosh in that Peach Bowl game with JT Daniels was, I mean, I don't want to say exceptional. He was one of the reasons why they won that game against Cincinnati. And to come back and win like that, he is very good coming out of the backfield in the passing game. Obviously, you see what he can do in kickoff return, but it will be different for Georgia in 2022. We've seen for a while now. I mean, I was about to say back to Nick and Sony, but it's really more than that. I mean, all the way back to Isaiah Crowell in 2011. They from 11 on, they have had a legit scary back in all of these teams, except when there's been just crazy injuries, which can happen in this league. But to go from Isaiah to Todd to Nick and Sony, I'm skipping Keith Marshall, who was pretty nasty his freshman year before injuries caught up with him. To go then to Nick and Sony, and then DeAndre, and then to Zamir and James. Now you've got Kenny McIntosh and Kendall Milton. I almost said Kendall Baker, who's a lineman from a couple of years ago. Um, that's a good run of running backs. And no one running back at Georgia is going to take the lion's share of snaps. I mean, Zamir a season ago, and I do want to look this up before I get it wrong. I mean, Zamir had the most snaps, but it wasn't some sort of crazy, number. And I think to me, that's what you should expect um, for now. And it may be that Kenny is the number one guy in terms of numbers of carries. I don't know. That's hard to know for sure. But I do think it will break down something like this. Like, see, Kendall Milton only played about half the game, so he played about 8 games. He still had almost as many carries as Kenny McIntosh. That tells you where they would like to go if they could. But anyway, Zamir had 160 carries. That's about 11-ish a game. James with 113. Kenny had 58 carries. Kendall Milton had 56. Stetson Bennett had 56. I mean, if you keep, and Edwards had 49. So if you can continue to move forward in a way that the ball is shared, which I expect to happen, that would be the ideal way of doing it. Again, Kendall only played half the games. He had 18 yards, he had 33 yards a game. That was third best on the team. So Kenny is more of an explosive guy. And then, Stetson Bennett had more gained yards than anybody other than Zamir and James Cook. If you retain Stetson, which is what I suspect will happen, that's not been announced or whatever. I mean, I don't know. But if you retain him, you always have to deal with that if you're the opposition. And I can't tell you how annoying that is to deal with. I mean, a quarterback that can run is a big time annoyance. Just look at what Bryce Young did to Georgia in the championship game in Atlanta. I mean, that it's an annoying thing, but these running backs are still there. What we get from Robinson, we'll see. What we'll see from, you know, this is really a big year. I'll talk about this more. This is a big year for Kendall Milton because he can really shine in a way that he's not really had the capability to because of, the snaps that other guys have gotten and being banged up a little bit. If he has a healthy season, man, y'all better watch out. That guy's legit, man. He's definitely the real deal. So that's what I would look forward to. There's transition, no question. I mean, when you're a returning ball carrier in terms of positive yardage, is Stetson Bennett. That's not maybe ideal, but you're returning Kendall, Kenny McIntosh, Stetson Bennett, Edwards. You're going to get Robinson in. You still could get James. I mean, they're doing okay on the running back front, but it will be different. Hey, make sure you're grabbing the book. Again, I told you, First run, second run. Second run's going to take a little longer to get to y'all, so make sure you're ordering now. Thanks for everybody who's ordered. We'll see you over on the website.